Hello to all of my sickening French divas, and welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be answering the question, how would I judge Drag Race France All-Stars Season 1? Now, let's talk about it, because this season of television was absolutely phenomenal. It was so good. I had such a good time watching it and engaging, like, online about it. It was really so sickening, and it reminds me, like, how good All-Star seasons can be. I usually make videos on Drag Race seasons for this How Would I Judge series when they come out, but I did not make one for All Stars 10 because I just could not be motivated to watch All Stars 10. Every passing episode made me dislike the season more. And I was like, I cannot watch this. I did not enjoy myself, so I didn't make a video on it. But this season I was like, okay, let's try for France All Stars. And this season really gave it to me. And I'm so excited to have very good All-Star seasons back, as well as Philippines Station Royale. There's only 3 episodes so far, but I mean, I think it's pretty good so far. We're going to see how it ends up, but I do like it a lot. But anyways, let's get into it. The rules to remember, as always, are the season has to be as long as season 1 of Drag Race France All Stars originally was, which is 8 episodes, and the performances and the challenges need to be based off of how someone did or how people would predict they would do. So I'm not just going to put somebody in the top when they were originally in the bottom, or vice versa, unless there's strong fan support for that being the case. The goal, as always, is to act as if I'm the head judge and craft this season however I can imagine to make it as fun and eventful as possible, while also being fair with my judging of the season by combining my own personal tastes and what was shown to us on the show. Before we go any further, please like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoy yourself. I appreciate all the support on the videos, as always, so thank you for that. In episode 1, we have ourselves the All-Stars Talent Show. Now, originally, this episode was a non-elimination episode, but not in a way that was anticipated. It was an elimination episode in the fact that there was tops and there was bottoms, and Mami Wata won the lip sync, had to choose a lipstick, and had to send somebody home before Nikki Doll was like, wait, I'm not ready for you to go. Very much a la Candy Muse in Drag Race Season 13. And then, they all stayed and moved on to episode 2, which, like, is fair, is okay. Also, especially considering the fact that in episode 2 was planned to be a ball challenge, a ball done in teams. So if you're gonna have teams, you need an even number of people. But, like, if they knew, if the plan was already for the ball challenge to be done in teams, which I'm assuming it was, and the plan was for that ball challenge to happen in episode 2, then it just makes sense to me. Like, okay, so episode 1 was planned to be a non-elimination episode from the start, but they delayed the knowledge to the viewers and to the contestants that it would be a non-elimination until quite literally the last second they could, which to me is not actually that engaging, because, like, all it does is, it changes the context of the bottom 2 and, like, the whole episode, because, like, knowing that it's a non-elimination episode from the jump, I feel like really makes the episode more fun, at least for me, because it allows the contestants to just purely more focus on, like, their performances and, having a good time, knowing that none of them are going home this week. I do think that it leads to a better episode to not lie to the contestants like that. Or not lie, but, like, just wave off the truth until you have to tell them the truth. You know what I mean? So the way that I'm going to be doing this episode is, since it is going to be a non-elimination, I'm going to treat it as an episode that was planned to be a non-elimination. And for that, I mean that there's going to be half the contestants in the top, and the top 2 will lip sync for the win, and that lip sync for the winner will receive some sort of prize. So the way that I've done this in other seasons is Mami Wata is going to win this episode, and she is going to get immunity from the next time that she is in the bottom. That's the way I like to do it. It's the most engaging way to do it for me. So we are going to be doing that. Originally in this episode, Mami Wata, Misty Phoenix, and Kim Hugh were all in the top. They're all going to stay in the top, with Mami Wata winning, Misty being top 2, and Kim being high. I completely agree with all those placements. They're all going to stay there. And originally, Punani was low, Magnetica and La Big Bertha were the bottom two, but obviously they're all going to be moved up to safe. But if we're going to have two people, well, if we're going to have 5 people in the top for half the cast, and we need 2 more people to enter the top. So I decided to move out of the original safe contestants, not Punani, Pish, and Soa Demuse into a high placement, because I think they were my favorites out of the 7 that were not originally in the top. I think both of their performances were really engaging. I always like Soa's singing numbers. I think they're always good. Uh, and Peach is just such a good performer, and I think that those two really were my 2. Then I was like, oh hell yeah, you're getting that high placement now, baby. So yeah, nothing really, nobody gets eliminated this episode. Mami Wata still wins, but now she's got immunity for if she ever would find herself in the bottom 2. Alright, in episode 2, we had ourselves the ball challenge, where they had to do the ball in teams. And what that meant was their first 2 looks were already set, but their third look was to be inspired on like a house, like a fashion house structure, and all 5 of the team members' looks needed to be cohesive in some way. So the themes were like a wings runway, kind of like working woman, like a working woman reveal, if that makes sense, runway. Starting off with something like a profession and then switching up into something else, and then the house's runway. So the team that was in the top, which was the team of Pish, Camhue, Ellipse, Punani, and Mamiwata, they were originally the top team, and they're going to stay the top team. I think they killed this challenge overall. Did so well. The top 2 originally were Ellipse and Camhue, with the kind of third in the top being Pish. But I decided to switch that up. I thought Ellipse was the third best in the challenge, but she was not my favorite. Pish, I think, did so fucking well in this challenge and absolutely deserved a top 2 placement. I know people hated her starting look for her second look for that reveal, and I totally get it. But her final look and her wings runway were both my favorites of their categories. And her second look, while the first part of the reveal was like not great, the second part was wonderful, and it was still in my top half of the runways. So Peach was my favorite person in this challenge, and I think deserved it. So Peach and Camhue are the top 2, with Ellipse, Mamiwata, and Punani being high. Now, originally, Misty Phoenix and La Big Bertha were safe from the bottom team, with Moon low and Magnetica and Soa Demuse in the bottom 2. Now, I decided to quite literally flip that whole script. I saw the placements of this episode before I watched the episode, and so I was like, oh, okay, that's, those are the placements, cool. Let me watch the episode, and watch, like, shortly thereafter, and then I was like, going in, like, assigning, like, okay, this is my favorite, this is my least favorite, this is my second least favorite, whatever. And then I was like, wait a minute, Magnetica and Soa are, like, easily my favorites of the bottom team. They really are. Their looks are by far the best out of the bottom team. I don't understand why they're the bottom 2. I think they're the bottom 2, honestly, for storyline reasons. I think the producers probably didn't care that much about Magnetica, because she was, she was kind of the season 3 kind of wild card pick, the early out pick, and she was in the bottom 2. I would say pretty rightfully, based off her performance in the first episode. And so it is so easy to have a non-controversial elimination, to just throw her in the bottom 2 in the next episode and do that against either, I would say the easiest way for the producers to do that, or throw her against Misty Phoenix, who was in the top 2 in the first episode, or against Soa Demuse, who was already on Global All Stars, has, done more Drag Race than any French contestant, and is kind of like, somebody that people aren't going to want to eliminate the first time she's in the bottom. So, I think that was the reason, or that was definitely part of the reason why Magnetica and Soa were the bottom 2. But I completely disagree. I don't think that either of them deserved a bottom 2. I think they both did better than than Punani, who was in the top team personally. Yeah, they're going to be safe for me. Moon is going to stay low. I feel like that is the fairest assessment of that. She was definitely the middle of the bottom group, so that's just how it is. And Misty Phoenix and La Big Bertha were my least favorite of that group. So they are going to be the bottom two. So Peach and Cam Hugh are going to lip sync to Non Je ne regrette rien by Edith Piaf. And Cam Hugh did not do like a bad job with this lip sync, but I would assume Peach would do better. We didn't get to see Peach do it, but you know, Peach is a pretty damn good performer. So I would just anticipate that she's going to do better. I don't feel like that's wrong or unfair. Peach is going to be winning this challenge. And out of the bottom two, I would assume that she would get rid of La Big Bertha. That is what makes the most sense to me. Peach is somebody who I feel like pretty much wanted to play kind of fairly throughout the season. You know, definitely had an opportunity in the eventual sixth episode to, you know, get rid of two people to bring back one if she wanted to. And you know, kind of shake shit up, make a big kind of like, you know, not straightforward, probably not as quote unquote fair move, but she ended up making the fairest decision in the end. So I would assume that Peach in this scenario would get rid of the person who was just safe in episode 1 versus the person who was in top 2. So sadly, La Big Bertha is going to be the first person eliminated, and we're going to move on to episode 3. In episode 3, we had ourselves the Snatch Game! This challenge I thought was kind of hard to judge, at least for me. I was really struggling on how to judge this challenge. But you know, I ended up making the decisions I chose to make. So originally the top two were Punani and Misty Phoenix, and I kept that the same. I do think they did the best of this challenge. It is hard always to judge a snatch game being done in a language that you do not speak, because, you know, there are certainly cultural references that I just, like, do not know. Like, everybody was gagging over Misty's performance, and I'm like, it is funny. I don't think it's as funny as they think it is, but obviously they know more than I do, because, you know, she's referencing somebody that I do not know. So, you know, that you gotta think about that shit when you're doing this. Love Big Bertha was high in this challenge originally, but she's not here, so we have to move somebody up to the high placement. And I think Moon is the most deserving of that. Moon, I think, did a pretty fun impersonation. I wish she would have got more screen time, because I really enjoyed it. And so out of her and Ellipse, who were originally safe and who, you know, I do think were probably the potential contenders to be moved up to high, for me it was definitely Moon. Originally in this episode, there was a bottom 4 instead of a bottom 3, and I did decide to keep that because I do think that was probably the fairest way to go. And also between Mamiwata and Soa Demuse, I'm not entirely sure who I would have placed as safe if I had to choose. In this moment, I'm leaning towards Soa, but like I really, you know, I don't have a good answer. And like usually if I'm like thinking about these placements for more than like a few minutes, like a single placement, like, who should be safe here? Should it be this person or this person? If I can't make a decision in a few minutes, then like I'm just gonna like do both, you know? Like I feel like it's you know, as I've gone further on into doing the series, I feel like it's not that deep. And you know, it's okay for shit to double up sometimes. And as we're going to see with the rest of this video, I decided to get kind of wacky with these placements. As we were going through, I'm like, you know, whatever, fine. We'll do this. We'll do this. We'll do this. So you'll see that. But anyways, Peach is safe. And then Mamiwata and Soa Demuse are both low. Soa Demuse was originally the bottom for this challenge, the bottom 2, but I don't agree with that. Well, with Magnetica being here, and Magnetica, you know, in every single context I have for Magnetica, assuming that she wouldn't do well in the Snatch game, I would assume Magnetica would be bottom 2 here, which would mean that one of Cam Hugh or Soa would need to be bumped out of the bottom 2. And I think out of Soa and Cam, I definitely think Soa did better. That's without a doubt to me. Soa did have a funny moment or two in there for sure. So I just don't I don't think the bottom two make sense for Soa here. And honestly, I kind of feel like she did a little bit better than Mami Wata too right now. But you know, hey, this is what it is. So they are low, and then Magnetica and Camhue are going to be our bottom two. The top two of Misty Phoenix and Punani are going to lip sync to Discoteca by Ascendant Vierge and Natsat. And Misty Phoenix will win this lip sync. I do agree with her winning this lip sync. And out of this bottom two of Camhue and Magnetica, Misty definitely, you know, she said verbatim, like, I want to make the fair decision and eliminate the person who has done worse in the competition so far. And in this case, that is very obviously Magnetica. Magnetica's two safes up to this point, and Camhue has a high and a top two. So it is, I would only expect Misty to eliminate Magnetica here. So sadly, she will go home, but you know, she did make it an episode further than she did originally and was, you know, safe for 2 episodes instead of, you know, just being at the bottom. So, you know, it's better. Good for her. Anyway, we're going to move on to episode 4. In episode 4, we have ourselves the Girl Groups Challenge, where they have to split in the girl groups and, you know, perform and all that jazz. So in this episode, we have Sodomies, where we originally had La Big Bertha, which, I mean, I don't think the groups particularly changed the placements. Like, you know, regardless of the group, people are going to, you know, do a certain level of good in, you know, lyricism, the actual singing, the dancing. They're all going to do similarly, regardless of what group they're in. But just for the sake of, you know, for posterity's sake, I did sort them into their groups. So the team leaders here are going to be Moon and Punani. And in my theory of this is that Moon still picks Misty first, then Punani still picks Peach, then Moon picks Mamiwata, then, what the fuck? Then Punani picks Soa Demuse, then Moon picks Ellipse, and then Punani picks Camhue. That's what I would assume would happen, but again, doesn't really matter that much. So anyways, Soa Demuse would definitely do a good job on this challenge. Soa won her girl groups challenge on her previous season. She won a girl groups challenge and she was safe in a girl groups challenge. So it is, you know, we got a win and a safe. So I kind of equaled that out to high. I think that is probably the fairest way to do it, to rank it. Mamiwata and Peach both did stellar jobs in this challenge. So, you know, while Soa Demuse could be in the top, I do think, you know, she could also be safe. I think those are both, you know, equally, you know, reasonable opportunities, seeing how everybody did in this challenge. So I just decided to put her as high because that felt like the fairest assessment of her abilities without actually knowing, you know, what she would have done. But really, all the other replacements stayed the same in this challenge. Mamiwata and Peach were my top two, as they were originally. Moon was originally high in this challenge, but since we have Soa here, I did bump her down to safe, because I do think Soa would do better. But Moon would definitely be like my 4th place here. Ellipse was safe originally, she still is. And Misty Phoenix was low, but I did decide to bump her up to a safe. This episode, there is no low. And really, that's because I don't think Misty Phoenix did bad enough to be, like, to be low, if that makes sense. Like, Moon was definitely my 4th favorite, but between Ellipse and Misty Phoenix, I really don't know how I feel. Like, I feel like for me at least, it could go either way. As to who is like my 5th favorite than my 6th favorite. And so I just felt the fairest thing was to make them both safe because I don't think either of them did a bad job. And to me, at least, it was very clear that the bottom two are Camhue and Punani. So if we have a very clear bottom two and not a clear low, I just felt it was most fair to make it where they were all safe. I was considering giving Moon an extra high placement, but I thought doing 3 safes felt the fairest, at least to me. So that is the way I decided to do it. And then Cammy and Punani. Kim Hugh and Punani were the original bottom two for this challenge, and they are still going to be the bottom two for this challenge. But anyways, Peach and Mami Wata are going to lip sync to Acas de Garçon by Yell. And Mami Wata is going to win this lip sync, and I do believe she would still eliminate Punani. She won this lip sync and eliminated Punani originally, so I really don't anticipate a reason why she wouldn't still do this. Punani does have a little bit of a better track record in this timeline because she's safe in episode 1 instead of low, so that does change things like a little bit. But that wasn't really the incentive for Mami Wata to get rid of Punani. She did that, you know, like that wasn't the reason. So I still think that Mami Wata would get rid of Punani here, in a bit of a gag. And so Punani sadly is going to go home, and we're going to move on to episode 5. Next, we have the makeover challenge, and as you can see, I did get a little funky with placements again. So yeah, we had the makeover here, and here we have Soa, where we did not have her originally. And knowing how well Soa does in design challenges and makeovers, I am assuming that Soa is going to be bottom 2. That's just, it feels like the most likely scenario to me. Like, Soa has had wonderful runways on Drag Race, but like, out of this whole field of competitors that we have here at the top 7, like, I'm just expecting her to do the worst in a look-based challenge out of all these people. So sorry to say, but that is a fact. Well, not a fact. It is my opinion, but it is a fact that is my opinion. So I do think so would be bottom 2 here. Anyways, originally in this challenge, Cam Hugh and Ellipse were the top 2. Mami Wata was high. Misty, Phoenix, and Peach were safe. And Moon and La Big Bertha were the bottom 2. And I very obviously decided to change up a lot of that. I think Mami Wata did a better job in this challenge than Ellipse, but honestly not by much. Like, looking at these two looks side by side, I think Mami Wata's has a super clear concept that I really like. And like looking at the like obviously they're both very similar quality outfits. Like they both are very polished. And Mami Wata's is a bit more conceptual and like, you know, giving a specific time and place, whereas Ellipse's is giving like high drag. And so, you know, I do completely understand someone being like, Ellipse is my favorite, or Mami Wata's my favorite, or you know, Kim Hughes my favorite, whatever. And this person's like my second, this person's my third out of those 3. I totally get it. But for me, Mami Wata is my second favorite. So I think Mami Wata and Kim Hughes should be the top 2 for this challenge. And Ellipse is going to get a high placement. Poor Ellipse, I've taken away 2 of her wins so far. I felt bad doing that, but that's the way I feel. And then, so originally, Misty, Phoenix, and Peach were safe, which I just don't understand. Especially having Moon in the bottom 2. Like, with the original timeline, I do agree La Big Bertha was bottom 2. I totally agree with that. But Moon did a really good job. Like, I like her looks a lot. These kind of like dark fairies is the best way I can describe them. I think they're really interesting and really cool. And I, you know, that is something that I would want to wear immediately. I really enjoy those looks. Uh, and so while it is not my, like, it doesn't enter my top 2, which a lot of people online are like, this look is like a top 2 look for Moon. I'm like, I don't agree. It is too small. You know, it is too, like, it is very Moon, but it just frankly isn't as polished or as grand as the top 3's looks. So for me, it's like a very solid 4th, but you know, it's obviously not the bottom. And I think it's good enough that it should be high, frankly. That's why I put it up. That's why I put it as high. But definitely not a top 2 look for me, but still definitely better than Misty and Peach. And out of Misty and Peach, I do think Misty did better. Her looks, you know, they were a little bit simple, but I think the concept actually worked really well. Whereas Peaches, I do like that she went for the concept doing like a feminized version of the Olympics mascot, the 2024 Olympics mascot. I thought that was funny, but also like when it comes to being a look, it is, you know, it is just uh like a what's the best way to phrase that? It's really just like a prop that she's wearing. It's not as much of an outfit as it is a character costume. You know, it's not a drag garment. It is a Chuck E. Cheese mascot uniform. You know what I mean? It is different. And while, if I saw a drag, like cunty Chucky the Cheese, would I live? Absolutely. Uh, but just like a straight up version of that is not something I'm anticipating or want. And Peach didn't do a straight up version, but like it wasn't dragged out enough that I could be like, oh yeah, that really deserves like the flowers this week and should be in the bottom. You know, it just was my least favorite out of the six that we got to see that are still in this episode. So Peach and Soa Demise are going to be the bottom two for this episode, and Mami Wata and Cam Hugh are going to be lip syncing to Boys Summertime Love by Sabrina. And I would assume that Mami Wata would win here. Cam Hugh has yet to win a lip sync on Drag Race. And Mami Wata has won like all but one of the lip syncs she's done. But what is her record? It's like what is it? Um, no, actually, wait. She won all three of her lip syncs on the original All Stars one. So she's 5-0 on lip syncs, and I completely agree with that. I do think she would win against Kim Hugh. Between Soa and Peach, this felt hard because we just saw with the last episode, Mami Wata get rid of Punani due to kind of her threat level and not go off the track record as much. And then in this next episode, it's like, okay, well, does she go based off a track record and get rid of Soa, or go based off of threat so far in the competition, get rid of Peach? And I struggled with it, but I ultimately decided that she would most likely get rid of Soa. Because I do think that in the final 5 episode of the season that we, got originally, Mami Wata was the winner, and Moon and Peach for the bottom two. And Mami Wata was very much willing to save Moon, even though Moon had no wins, and Peach had a couple. Uh, but Moon was like, please don't save me. I don't want to go to the top four with no wins. Doesn't feel right for me. And Mami Wata listened to that and was like, okay, I guess I'm going to choose your lipstick then. And to that effect, I do think that in this bottom two scenario, Peach has a lot of fight and is going to advocate for herself to stay. And I don't think that Soa would be doing as much advocating. I think Soa, as we've seen on Drag Race, can be the type of person where, after, getting the bottom is like, well, fuck, this sucks. I'm gonna try. But she doesn't fight. She doesn't fight as much as somebody like Peach does. And so I think that in a scenario where it's Peach versus Soa Demuse in the bottom two, I think that, Mami Wata is confronted with a situation like she was in the original Final Five episode where somebody is fighting to stay and one person is not. And then she just kind of has to be like, well, damn, I guess the person who doesn't want to stay, I should get rid of. And I'm not saying that Soda needs to be like, I want to quit, because I don't think she would do that. But I definitely don't think she would be like really fighting to stay. So sadly, I do think she would most likely get rid of Soa here. And we're going to move on to episode 6. In episode 6, we had ourselves the Queenovision challenge, where they had to, choreograph and perform in 3 songs, a kind of Eurovision parody. It is curious that they did this challenge quite literally episode 6 when they had their girl groups challenge in episode 4. I'm like, that feels, you kind of just did this. Like, they aren't writing their lyrics for this challenge, so, it's not the same, but it is definitely similar. And I'm like, okay, that's, curious. I am just glad they didn't do like a standard acting challenge this season, because they could have done that. But they didn't, and I appreciate that, because I don't really ever want a standard acting challenge. That it doesn't interest me. But as we said, yay, they didn't do it. So, anyways, the the 6 contestants that performed in this challenge originally are still here, so they're going to stay in their groups. And originally, Ellipse and Peach were the top 2. Moon and Mamiwata placed high, and Misty Phoenix and Kim Hugh were the bottom 2. And I really kept that the same. It is a touch different because Moon and Mamiwata are instead safe and not high, but that's just because that is the way I do, final 6 episodes in with like a pairs format. That's how I would always do an episode like this. Is there's like a win high or win top 2, whatever, 2 safes, and then a bottom 2. And that's also just how I do like regular top 6 format episodes as well, like with 6 people competing individually. Yeah, I just don't believe that Mamiwata and Moon killed it enough for me to be like, oh, they have to be high. Like, they did a wonderful job, obviously. They were very clearly second place in this challenge as of the teams. But I don't think I would have placed them high for that. You know what I mean? Like, that feels a bit willy-nilly to me, personally. So, they are going to be safe. But anyways, Ellipse and Peach are the top 2. They're lip sync to I Had a Dream by Nikki Doll, and Peach is still going to win this lip sync. And Peach, this episode has the the twist. They can do the regular lipstick and have it be standard elimination, where whoever they choose to go goes home. Or actually, it's actually whoever they choose to save stays, and the person that they don't choose to save obviously goes home. Or they can do a funky little thing where they choose to bring back a previously eliminated contestant, and then the bottom 2 both go home. Which I don't like this twist. That doesn't make sense to me. Like it literally makes sense. Like I understand what it's doing, but I don't like it. I think that is a lot of power to hold. To give to somebody. And they did similar twists to this where like in All Stars 3 of Drag Race, the winner of the girl groups challenge had to eliminate somebody and choose somebody who was previously eliminated to re-enter. But that's different because they had to do it, so that's like that was stated, that was clear from the jump. And that was not the case with this. I'm not saying that it wasn't clear, but I'm saying that they were given a choice in this scenario, whereas All Stars 3 they weren't given a choice. And I do think it makes more sense that if you're not given a choice, if you have to do it, because then it standardizes the episode. It makes it make more sense, like, okay, this is how the format of the episode's going to be, but this leaves so much room for different shit to happen. And like I know if I was watching this and like if Cam Hugh and Misty both got eliminated and somebody was brought back, I would feel horrible for fucking Misty. That's how as a viewer, that's how I would feel, because like it is very obvious based off of how they performed so far that Misty should stay over Cam, just is the fairest option. But like if we had Cam and Misty eliminated and you brought back like Magnetica, I would be like, what the fuck? That would be weird. So I'm glad that Peach did not do that and just eliminated Cam Hugh, which is what she's gonna do here. And we're just gonna move on to episode 7. Alright, in episode 7, we had ourselves the roast challenge. So originally, oh no, I'm speaking an accent. Originally, the top 2 were Mamiwata and Misty Phoenix. Ellipse was high, and Peach and Moon were the bottom 2. I usually, for a 5-person episode, would have like a win, high, safe, and a bottom 2. With the top 2 format season being a win, top 2, safe, and a bottom 2. But for this, I did agree with what they did originally and having 3 tops and 2 bottoms, and kept it that way because it was very clear to me, and I think to really everybody, that Mamiwata, Ellipse, and Misty Phoenix all did a phenomenal job in the challenge, and Peach and Moon both did okay. So I do think that having the top 3, bottom 2 is the fairest way to do this. But I did decide to switch it up a little bit. I do think Ellipse did a bit better than Misty Phoenix. Misty's character was fun, but I do think Ellipses like made more sense, if that makes sense. This just, so with the point with this roast, which it actually technically wasn't a roast, it was the Nikki Doll Awards. It's not Nikki Doll. It is it's technically pronounced just like a little bit differently, but I also kind of don't understand the kind of play on words, so I'm not even going to try. But with this roast, they had to also, in their kind of routine, uh, like present an award to somebody, uh, and a stupid award, and that is a good thing to be used for helping set up jokes and uh, you know all this other stuff. It provides extra context for the contestants to work off of, which I do think is beneficial. But like just like go looking at Ellipse's and Misty Phoenix's routines, I think they're both similar levels of funny to me, but Ellipse, her routine just makes more sense. She immediately kind of calls out the character she's doing, and while I don't know the character because I'm not French, if I was watching as a French person, and she, comes out in her outfit and immediately calls out the character, I'm immediately like, oh, okay, we're doing a bit on this. And I just think that's good, like showmanship. I just think that is a smart way to go about it. Regardless of whether it's like the most obvious character on the planet or somebody a bit more niche. I just think that makes a lot of sense, and I like that she did that. And also, like the way that she was going through the award and presenting it actually made sense. Uh, technically, there's no rule like, oh, it has to make sense. So, Misty Phoenix could do whatever the fuck she wanted. But like, as somebody who is, he doing this and listening to this, listening to comedy in a language that he doesn't speak, Ellipse's set just made a lot more sense to me than Misty Phoenix's. Like the jokes, I was like, okay, this feels better to me than Misty's does. That's not saying that Misty did bad. I still thought she did a very good job, but Ellipse's set just was better to me. So Ellipse and Mami Wata are going to be the top two for me this episode, and they're going to lip sync to Recommence-moi by Santa, and Mami Wata would most likely win this lip sync. That means Mami Wata has won 4 lip syncs this season and has eliminated 3 people due to those lip syncs. And as I stated earlier, with the way that this episode happened originally and how it would happen here, most likely, Mami Wata feels inclined to save Moon, but Moon is like, do not save me, save Peach. And that is what happens, and that's probably what would happen here. So sadly, Moon will be eliminated. And we're going to move on to the finale. And let's talk about the finale for a second, because this finale was so good. It was a wonderful finale. I mean, live audience, France like always does it. It always eats. And you have guests, you have Lady Gaga saying, the good luck and don't fuck it up, which is so wonderful. Uh, Especially since the final lip sync of the fucking season is to Abracadabra. And I just think it works really well. And I'm not gonna harp on this for too long because I feel like this video is gonna be long. I could be wrong. But I Our original lip sync pairings are Ellipse versus Peach, Mami Wata versus Misty Phoenix. And I do agree with the lip sync results. I do think Ellipse won, and I think Mami Wata won. I completely understand that and agree with that. I do think everybody did a really good job, though. Uh, Ellipse and her reveals on her first lip sync and the finale top 2 lip sync were both really fucking good sets of reveals. And honestly, Misty Phoenix did a super good job against Mami Wata. I think to that song against Ellipse or Peach is in the top 2, but not against Mami Wata. So it's an unfortunate situation for Misty Phoenix, where if a situation happened just like a little bit differently, who knows? Maybe we could see Misty Phoenix winning the season. But that is not going to be the case here. The top 2 of Mami Wata and Ellipse are going to lip sync to Abracadabra by Lady Gaga, and I think they both did really well. But looking at their track records, Mami Wata has cleared this season. Mami Wata, if I'm remembering correctly, has 4 wins, 2 highs, and a low. and Ellipse has 2 top 2s, 2 highs, and 3 safes, which are both very good track records, but Mami Wata's is better. So she is going to win this season. I think very, very, very deservedly. Okay, I was wrong. Mami Wata had a high and a safe, not 2 highs. My bad. But anyways, these are the track records for the season. I do think it's very interesting how only 3 people, like, were in the bottom and not and like survived like a bottom 2 placement. Like Misty Phoenix was bottom 2 twice, Peach was bottom 2 twice, and then Kim Hughes bottom 2 twice, all not being eliminated. Kim Hugh obviously did get eliminated eventually, but like everybody who survived a bottom 2 survived it twice, which is interesting to me. Does it mean anything? No. Is it interesting to me? Yes, absolutely. But yeah, these are the track records of this season. Mami Wata has a 4.14 PPE score, which is super high. I don't think it is the highest of any of my seasons that I've done rejudgings of, but it honestly, I mean, it might be. It really might be. I could be totally wrong. But it is, it's really good. And then Ellipse with 3.71 is also up there. Obviously not the best because Mami Wata had a better one. But, I've only had a handful within, above like 3.7. So, good for both of them. They both really killed the season. I'm very happy for them that they did. Anyways, that is going to be the end of this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed yourself. Leave your thoughts, feelings, and opinions down below. As always, I will leave my other social media handles linked down below if you want to go follow me on there. And again, thank you all so much for watching. As always, take care. Bye-bye.